Hey, I am Jess, and I'm obsessed with all things nutrition, science, and helping you navigate this information while maintaining a deep sense of peace and empowerment in your body. I'm a registered dietitian who started out with an eating disorder and then fell in love with learning about how God intricately designed our bodies to be resilient and so much more than superficially beautiful. I am now a mama who loves to be healthy, not because of how it makes me look, but because of how it has transformed the energy I can give to my family, my friends, and you. On this show, we hit on real talk around the latest nutrition science and body image resiliency, all while balancing it between grit and grace. Think of this as your weekly audio coffee to encourage your empowered eating journey. This is the Fuel Her Awesome podcast. Oh, my friend, you are in for such a treat today. We are talking about sleep. This is one of my personal favorite topics to cover, especially with experts, because I've struggled with it on such a personal level. Sleep is so important, and yet it is also so sensitive to what is going on, whether we are a new mom, we have stress, we have sickness, we have things going on in our life. Our sleep seems to be the thing that is most easily impacted. And so today I have Ellen Wermter on the show. She is a family nurse practitioner and behavioral sleep medicine specialist. She practices in Charlottesville, Virginia. And in addition to her clinical work, she's a regular contributor to the Better Sleep Council. She is a wealth of information. And my favorite thing about this conversation today is that not only are you going to get science, but she pulls soul into it, just like we do here with food. She is very real and understands that the picture perfect 8 hours of sleep with a perfect schedule is not something that is accessible to everyone. While it's great, it's also not necessary. And she has a lot of grace in how she communicates the science behind optimal sleep. So this is when you're going to want to grab a piece of paper and a pen because she covers lots of science. You're going to want to take some notes, but I know you're going to walk out of this episode with awesome tips and some action items to improve your quality of sleep. Let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. Well, Ellen, I am so excited you're on the show today. We're going to be talking about sleep, which is something that I have really struggled with in my lifetime. So I'm personally very excited to pick your brain, but also excited to share it with those who are listening because I know it's such an important piece of the health puzzle. But before we dive in, tell us just a little bit about where you live, your background, and what you do for a living.
Absolutely. So I live outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. I am a family nurse practitioner and got into sleep medicine after I got my nurse practitioner certification, and I've been here ever since. I love the sleep field. Everybody is so kind and inviting. And of course, like you said, everybody does this every night. So there's no, um, everybody wants to talk about it, learn more
Yeah.
about it, hear more about how, they can optimize it or do it better or what's normal, what's not normal. So, as part of my sleep training, I also sat for a board to get my diplomate in behavioral sleep medicine. So, I am a behavioral sleep medicine specialist as well as a nurse practitioner, and it's just a great space to be in.
That's so cool. So when someone comes to see you, what's the process like? Is there an assessment and then recommendations or do you do live sleep studies? Tell me a little bit about what that looks like for the folks you work with.
Exactly. Well, I practice full time in a clinic. And then outside of that work, I do work I partner with Better Sleep Council, which
Mhm.
is who I'm representing in this context. But in my clinical work, basically, someone would make an appointment and then I would meet them and I would do a very detailed sleep history and initial consultation. I ask them a lot of questions about, what time they're going to bed, when they're getting up, how long it takes to fall asleep, what symptoms, if they're having any symptoms, and lots of and then other things like their caffeine use, their alcohol use, things that typically we think of as disrupting sleep. How big of a role could those things be playing? And then we make a plan at the end of that initial consultation. Oftentimes that will involve a sleep study. It doesn't always, but in many cases it may. And there are two types of sleep studies right now. In general, one that you do at home, and then one that you might do in an attended one in a lab that's called a polysomnogram. And that one has the advantage of getting your brain waves so we can see what stages of sleep you're going through and whatnot. But they're both valuable, and it just depends on the symptoms as to which one I would recommend. And then if the person is going to undergo that testing, then afterward they would come back and see me, and we would review the results, and then we would make a plan based on those results.
That's so cool. I didn't know a sleep home study was an option. That's very cool.
Yes, and those are pretty popular these days,
I bet.
particularly for screening for sleep apnea, which is a big problem. And it's very prevalent, and it can be sneaky, particularly in women. As with a lot of other medical conditions, it doesn't present the same. And so a lot of people think, oh, to have sleep apnea, you have to be, a big sort of truck driver man with a thick
Yeah.
neck, and that there have to be these conditions, and there really don't. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes there's loud snoring, sometimes it's a little more subtle. So sometimes, and in women, some of the presenting symptoms are more unusual, like insomnia can be a presenting symptom.
Mm.
Extra waking during the night, or more anxiety in the night, or things like that can be symptoms as well.
Wow. Wow. Oh, I can already tell we are going to learn so much. I think everybody listening needs to like grab a pen and a paper as we go through this conversation. Now, Ellen, tell me a little bit about, I mean, we hear it all the time. You have to get enough sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you shave years off your life. Tell us a little bit about what actually happens when you don't get enough sleep.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it brings up something that I think is really important, which is there is a difference between insomnia and sleep deprivation. So
Mm.
sleep deprivation is truly, if I gave you the opportunity, you would fall asleep right now, but you're deprived of sleep because you haven't given yourself that opportunity. So
Mm.
that's a different condition than insomnia, which is you're lying in bed, you're giving yourself the opportunity, and your brain's just not choosing to take it in the way that feels satisfying and robust in this moment. So a lot of the studies that are done saying, oh, if you don't get X number of hours of sleep, you're going to have, this bad outcome or that bad health outcome. Those are actually done on patients who have been sleep deprived. So we
Mm.
let them sleep 4 hours, and then we make them get up, and we keep poking them awake and making them stay awake. And then
Oh.
we measure their blood sugar, and we measure their blood pressure, and we measure their cognitive abilities and things like that. And of course, in those situations, if we're not letting the body get what it really needs to get, you're going to have some health outcomes. But in the patient population of insomnia, we really don't see that same kind of health outcome problem. But the difficult thing is in the media, it's just sort of, it's like if you don't get enough, and it doesn't clarify. And so what that means is when someone is having trouble sleeping and then they hear these messages, it only serves to increase their fear and their anxiety.
Yeah.
And then that just perpetuates the insomnia cycle. So unfortunately, the messaging out there, it's usually more to kind of get your attention.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
are people who need to hear the importance of sleep, because there are people who don't prioritize it. There are people who don't give themselves the opportunity, and they think they'll be okay, and they're sort of just adapting the best they can, or they're using things to get through, like an extra cup of coffee or whatnot. And in those cases, yeah, you're probably doing yourself some harm. But in the other cases, that messaging is not helpful. So that's something that I deal with a lot in my insomnia care, specifically, is trying to sort of break that down with people so that they can understand that better. And the other piece is just the duration of sleep is not set. I mean, it really is an individualized number. So, and that number can change over the course of your life. So just because you needed, 6 hours or 8 hours when you were 20, you may need 7 hours when you're 50. You may need 6 hours. So it really does range. I think the right now, the peak for lowest morbidity is around 7 hours, not 8. But
Wow.
even that is an average. So there are going to be some people that do fine with 6. There are some people that are going to need 9. So you really have to pay attention to how you're feeling during the day. Do you feel rested? Those types of things. And new studies have come out recently as well that, and I did a blog on this for the Better Sleep Council about the importance of regularity of sleep and how we're seeing
Mm,
that that's even more important for some of these health outcomes than the actual number of minutes you get per night. We do have some resiliency in, yes, we want that regularity to be there because it just, our brains love predictability. They want to know what's coming next. And when we stay up really late on a weekend and sleep in, and then we have to get back on track on Monday, that takes a toll. And
mm,
so really trying to minimize those shifts. It's almost like taking a flight somewhere and then having that, it's called social jet lag instead of,
mhm.
just the traditional jet lag. But it's really not helpful to our body to do that on a regular basis. That regularity is just important as the duration.
Oh my gosh, you have already taken stress off of me because I was one of those that struggled with insomnia for about 2 years. And I mean, it was intermittent insomnia, but
Mhm.
the stress, I was like, I'm giving myself, I don't know. I mean, I was making up all these stories about the damage that my body was going to incur during this season, and it made it worse. It made it 10 times worse. And
Absolutely. And most of my work there is just sort of helping people to recognize that
that's
and to
amazing.
help give them strategies to sort of shut that down when that
Yeah.
happens because sleep is a passive process. And the more sort of pressure we put on ourselves, the more performance anxiety we have. We're just sort of getting in the way of our brain's ability to kind of do it more naturally. And so it's really about kind of addressing that piece of it.
Wow. Well, and then even going to the number, I mean, I have heard 8 hours, which
Mhm.
as a working mom who wants to do all the things, like that is to me, and maybe this is a story I've told myself, but it feels very unrealistic. And
Yeah.
so, like, I would say I average like 6.5 to 7.
Mhm.
And I feel great about that. I feel fantastic. And I talk to a lot of my other mom friends, and we have a lot of moms that listens to the show. They don't get anywhere near 8 hours either. And so what you just said is very validating as a working mom to know that, hey, maybe we're okay. And then have they done any studies? I've always wanted to know this on new moms and their intermittent sleep and how they navigate, how they can still function and what that's like. Is there anything out there on that season of life?
I I haven't done a deep dive into that,
Hmm.
but I know that a few do exist, and I know it's such a critical time, and that's one of the reasons I think back to when my children were itty bitty babies, and that time is so foggy, and there's a reason for that. The
Yeah.
reason is that when you're not getting that normal sleep cycles, you're not taking that those memories and moving them from short term into long
Hmm.
term storage. And so that time, you can tell just by that the impact of that disruption in sleep
Yeah.
has. And so trying to minimize that, getting help, asking for help, setting things up. I remember with one of my children who just was determined to not sleep the way
Yeah.
that we sort of expected him to sleep. We had to do a shift work sort of
Mhm.
routine where basically as soon as my husband got home from work, I would go to bed and I was sleeping at really weird hours, but I could get 6 p.m. to midnight, and that 6 hour chunk was so much better. And then I'm basically taking, the night shift from there on. It's like I'll catch it because he would wake up at 1 and then he would wake up at 3 and then he would wake up at 5. So we had to get creative with that. But so I think when we look back, some of that sleep disruption, it's so apparent just in the fact that the memory is so kind of fuzzy. But that's why I think when people tell new moms, I remember people gave me the advice, take lots of pictures and write things down and
Yeah.
record now we have cell phones. Like when mine were coming up, I literally it was journaling, but now
Yeah.
we can like easily record and say, oh, he said something cute today, or we can just videotape it and we have those memories really fresh to remind ourselves like what it was like when
Yeah.
they were little, because it does
It's
it's
a
a blink of
blur.
an eye and they're,
I
out
know.
the
How old are
door.
yours now?
They are 25, 22, 20, and 18.
Oh my gosh. No,
Yeah.
I heard they stop aging at 10. They stay at 10 forever. That's how old my oldest is. And I'm like, no, stop. It
I
is a
feel bad
blur.
for my youngest because at one point I think I was in one of those emotional moods and I said, promise me you'll never grow up.
Yeah.
And she kept trying not to grow up. And
Oh,
finally I had to say, oh, honey, mommy was just, it's
yeah.
okay. You're allowed to grow up. You're just always be my baby. And
I
that's hard
know.
for me sometimes.
It's weird. I know. It's like such a pleasure to see them grow, and at the same time I want to freeze time. But you're
Yes.
right. Those early years are such a blur, and yet our bodies are resilient at the same time, which
Yeah,
is, so amazing. And I think to speak to what you were saying earlier is that if we can take some of the stress away of like getting the perfect 8 hours and like
that's
know
right.
that we do the best we can, it'll take some of the stress off.
That's right.
Now, talk to me a little bit about, I love how you're so evidence-based. I mean, this is so my jam. It's you're not hitting on what like we're seeing influencers say in social media, right? Like you're really digging into the literature. So tell me a little bit about some of the evidence-based ways to improve the quality of sleep, regardless of how many hours, but how do we improve the quality?
Okay. Well, I have my favorite too. There are lots of ways that you can approach it, but study after study after study after study, um, exercise is one of
Yeah.
my top ones. And there's a reason for that. It's because the way that sleep is regulated, one of the ways it's regulated is through your homeostatic drive. And what that means is the longer you're awake and the more you're moving your body, you're breaking down ATP. Remember, like muscles,
Mhm,
ATP,
mhm, mhm.
energy. And when you break down ATP, the byproduct of that, the A, is adenosine. Adenosine is one of the one of the biggest chemical indicators of sleepiness. So
Mm.
the more adenosine you have, the more sleepy you're going to become. So you're literally building your sleep drive through movement. And the more you move and the more you use your muscles and the more active you are during the day, the more sleep drive you're going to build and the more robust that sleep is going to be. And that's why, as adults get older, especially like the really older end of the spectrum, it's their muscles aren't as big, they're not moving them as much. So sleep is different in older adults, biologically so, and that can be okay, that can be normal. But for if people want to know one easy way to improve their sleep, exercise has got to be way up there on the top of the list, just because it really does match with biologically how we build our need to sleep.
Mhm.
And cognitive things can do that as well, because when you're using your brain a lot, for instance, like when people take a new job or they go back to school, all of a sudden they're so sleepy. Well, that's because biologically you have a high cognitive load. There's a lot going on that you're having to figure out that's new. And so you're using more energy to do that. Emotions can make you more sleepy too, because it's the same sort of thing. You're using more energy in that emotional load is higher. And so that can build the sleep drive as well. So exercise is high up there because of the homeostatic sleep drive. It's the way we regulate sleep. And so that's my number one.
I
Right.
love that. Well, and to get to that ATP, it doesn't matter what kind of exercise you do, right? It's
Right.
like weightlifting, running, walking, whatever you want. It's just literally move your body.
Do what you love and
I
glisten every day.
I love that glisten. I love that. And then what's your second one? What is the second
My
one?
my second one is to go outside,
Mm,
actually, because outdoor time, lots of studies there too, showing the benefits of nature and the benefits of being, but from a sleep perspective, it's all about the light.
mm,
And really, the other way we regulate our sleep, there's two ways: homeostatic and your circadian rhythm, which a lot of people are familiar with that term. And that circadian rhythm, the biggest input into that to sort of regulate it, to set it, to drop an anchor in it is outdoor light. So when you go outside, it's tens of thousands of lux that your eye is sensing. So that's the intensity of the light, but it's also the quality of the light. So it is registering the spectrum of the light. Where is that light on the spectrum? And so when you go out and you're getting that intense blue light, it's really telling your brain, now it's time to be awake. And
Mhm.
then as the day goes on, when we used to spend more time outside, as the sun sinks onto the horizon for sunset, that's when the intensity lowers
Mhm.
and the spectrum shifts to the red end. So you're getting all those pinks of the sunset. And that's when your brain says, dim light. There's something called dim light melatonin onset and red spectrum, and it's producing your own natural. So you're gonna, if you go outside for like a sunset walk or an evening walk, it's again sensing the change.
Mm.
So the morning walk's great because that's dropping an anchor saying it's daytime, it's time to be up, it's time for get up and go. It's bright. This is the start of the day, and so you're giving your body that really strong cue. And
Mhm.
then if you go outside in the evening, that's great too, because it can help to sort of enhance the melatonin secretion that you naturally have, that your brain naturally does because it's noticing the intensity dropping and it's noticing the change in the spectrum.
That's so fascinating. And you're moving too, right? If we get outside and go
And
for
you're
a
moving,
walk.
like if you can combine that like with a walk or something,
Yeah,
you're getting double whammy. If you can combine it with a walk with a friend, you're getting triple whammy
that's
because you're getting
awesome.
that social interaction, which I love. But really, exercise and outdoor light exposure, they're really fantastic ways to improve your sleep
That's so
and your
great.
mood. I mean, honestly, they're mood boosters too. So,
We started doing a family walk at the end of the day, but not for that reason. Now I know it's also going to fuel that, but because I have two little boys and like they cannot be in the house for that
yeah.
long in the evening, and we got to get some of their wiggles out, is what I call it.
Yes.
Now, I do have a question. Where does a sun lamp fit in here? Does it mimic the
Yeah.
same response?
That can be a good tool, particularly depending on if you live in one of those climates that's a
Mhm.
little bit, more challenged, or it's just winter. I mean, even in Virginia, where I am, sometimes in the winters, the days feel awfully short.
Mhm.
And if it's a really cloudy one, you can use the lamp to enhance your mood. They also can help get you over that afternoon slump.
Mm.
Biologically, we have a slump
Mhm.
after lunch. And that's just because we've built up a lot of adenosine, but our circadian rhythm hasn't given us the push yet to say, hey, sun's still up. You've got to get through dinner and homework and soccer
Right.
practice and all of that. So I'm going to give you a little extra push. So it's right when we've built up a lot of sleep pressure, but haven't gotten our push. That's biologically normal to feel sleepy at that time. And sometimes that's a good time to turn the lamp on to kind of get you over that little
That's
hump, is
great.
to give you that little boost in the afternoon. But yes, those can be a nice stand-in if you, and some people, they unfortunately have jobs where they have to get up and get going at like 5 in the morning. The sun's not up yet. And that's where that lamp, if you put it while you're putting your makeup on or while you're
Mhm.
doing something, then you're getting the signal that, hey, it's daytime, it's time to get going, even though it's sort of just being a stand-in for the sun.
Sure. And is there a certain amount of time you need to be exposed to that to lay that anchor down?
Yeah, I usually, you know, I'm more in the camp of see what works for you.
Mm,
But I think the
I like
rules of
that.
thumb that you'll hear are probably 20 to 30 minutes,
Okay.
somewhere. But I'm sort of one of those people where I'm like, if you can get 10, it's better
That's
than nothing.
awesome.
You can
Yeah.
take what you can get. I'll say go out on the deck and eat your, bagel or whatever you're having for breakfast, go out on the deck and eat it, or walk outside,
Yeah.
while you're brushing your teeth, whatever
Right.
you need to do to get even a little bit is better than none, in my opinion.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
max
can
benefits are probably going to be closer to 20, 30 minutes.
I can tell you're a mama and you've been juggling all the things because you know that like sitting for 30 minutes in the morning is probably unrealistic for most
Not
of
going to
us.
happen. Yeah,
No, but hey, I could brush my teeth outside. That I could do.
right.
I love that. Okay, so exercise and getting outside. Now let's talk a little bit about stress and the impact stress has on our sleep patterns.
Absolutely. Stress and sleep are sort of enemies. I mean, they're just not meant. It's part of our survival instinct where if we have a perceived threat, it impacts our ability to sleep. If you think about from an evolutionary standpoint, if you were sleeping in a cave and you'd had a very busy day in hunting and gathering, and you were to lie down and you're ready to sleep, but then you heard prowling outside of the cave, it would not be to your evolutionary advantage to be able to fall asleep easily at that point. And
Mm,
so we do have sort of an override built into our system to say when there's a perceived threat, let's change our sleep so that we're doing more checks, so that we're having more arousal, more hyper arousal.
mm,
Unfortunately, like stress in our world is not a lion at the source of the cave. It can be anything. So sometimes if it's an acute thing, the best thing to remember is if you're going through an acute situation, is just to say, this is normal for me to have sleep disruption because of
mm,
that, and not let the stress that you're dealing with cause you more dis, upset. Because once you go from I'm not sleeping because I'm dealing with a difficult, my mom had surgery or something like
mhm,
that, to now I can't sleep because I'm worried about my sleep. Oh no, I'm not
mhm,
sleeping. That's where the shift comes in. It's
mhm.
normal to have, disruptions in sleep because you're worried about your family or your job or your money or, all of those things that we typically experience. But when it starts to shift from that to, oh no, I didn't sleep. Oh no, I've got to sleep. And this
Yeah.
desperation sits in and this anxiety slips, that's what we want to try to avoid. So usually it's all about sort of controlling the stress, finding the ways that you can manage your stress, understanding that it's normal, but then working on your ways to manage your stress. And also not bringing stress into your bedtime, trying to have,
Mm.
an expectation of life's full of stressors, but the night is not really the time that I solve those problems. Sometimes when it's dark and those distractions are put away, that's when our brain wants to try to solve the problems, right?
Always, always.
Yes, but it's not good at it in the middle of
Yeah.
the night. Like the logical reasoning side of our brain is offline, and so we end up ruminating. We ended up getting stuck in these little cycles of going over the same thing and not being able to come to a solution. And it's not often until the morning when we wake up and we go, why was I thinking about
Yeah,
that
why
for
was
like an
I?
hour last night? I
Yeah,
didn't get anywhere with it, but now that I'm awake and that reasoning side is back online, the answer is really simple,
I
or
love
or
that.
or it's not as big a deal as it felt like in the middle of the
Yeah.
night. Like, why was I so upset about it? So making your environment a sanctuary, making sure you've got your room set up where it really is a place that's set aside as this is my rest and recovery zone. Having your bedding a really comfortable, your mattress in good shape, and a place where you want to go and just have that recovery time. I think, and trying, I know this is a hard one. Everybody hates it when I tell them this, but trying to get the cell phone out of the bedroom as much as possible. If you can't put it in a different room, trust me, I didn't think I could, but I do not sleep with my cell phone in my room anymore. And I am living proof that you can do it. It lives in the kitchen. But if that feels too anxiety producing for you, then start by moving it from where you can reach it to in the same room, but across the room.
Mm,
Do baby steps to kind of get yourself away from it. But we are all so connected to our phones now that it's almost like this invisible thread is there. And when you know it's there, your brain is like checking it. And it's just adding to the hyper arousal, and it's kind of messing, making sure your sleep isn't that restful restoration that we need it to be. So I know everybody doesn't like that piece of advice, but the further you can get it away from your bed, the better. Make it a sanctuary, make it a place where, you feel like this is just me time, this is my downtime, this is my rest and recovery time, and I'm going to use it to, the rest of the world and the rest of the problems can wait until day because I'm better at solving them then.
so
I can't
good.
really do anything about them right now. And some people have to put in place what we call a worry window or a daily debrief where you actually set
I like
aside
that.
15 minutes to purposely go where your brain's going to want to go in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and just have a journal. Actually have a piece of the studies have shown something about a piece of paper to pen helps you to kind of get it out of that hamster wheel.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I've put it down. I'm not going to forget it, because I know busy moms, what do? Oh, I don't want to forget that. So you keep coming back to it and back to it and back to
Mhm.
it. So writing it down, having that worry window, and then when it comes up in the night, because it will, you just say, "Hey, this isn't my best problem solving time. I will write that down, or I'll have time to write that down tomorrow. But this isn't really efficient for me to do
Right.
it now." That's what I tell myself. It's
Oh
a
yeah.
poor use of
Oh,
my time.
I'm laughing because my husband started poking fun at me in the best way because we'd get in bed and he could see me start getting wound up about like what was
Yes,
going to stress me out. And he said, "Hey babe, why don't you try to figure it out at 2 in the morning?" Like he would start to poke at me and I was like, "You're so right. Like there's no way I'm going to figure this out at 2 in the morning." And there's something so powerful about just going ahead and writing it down and saying, "Okay, I will deal with this in the morning." And sure
that's right.
enough, like you wake up, it pops into your head, but you go, "Yep, I already wrote that down. Brain, thanks for popping in and reminding me, but I've already put a system in place to remind me to take care of that."
I
And
love that your husband called you
oh,
on it,
he
because
did.
when somebody does that, it makes you think, oh, you know what? That is kind of
Yeah. Oh, I
ridiculous.
laughed so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it helped too, because like to what you were saying, it helped me rationalize that like that is not my best problem solving hour
Yeah,
of the day. So
absolutely.
I just, yeah, now when I wake up, I'm like, oh, good, I'm awake. I listen to some meditations and I'm like, oh, that would
Perfect.
be a nice thing to do instead of trying to fix all the stuff in my head.
That's right.
I love your approach, Ellen. I mean, the way you speak about this really gives like this sense of ease about sleep, which is so wonderful and so different than I think the narrative that I've heard in the past, which has been
Yeah.
get your sleep. If you don't get sleep, this is what's going to happen. And, I can definitely speak to being one of those people who got more stressed out because I wasn't sleeping and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to ruin everything, getting really dramatic about it, especially at 2 in the morning when you
Yeah, of
wake up.
course.
I do have another question for you that I want to hit on about sleep. Can you talk to us about naps? Do they really work? And should we take them if we feel, especially that afternoon energy dip?
Yeah. I Naps is something that if you ask 10 different sleep specialists, you'll get 10 different
Oh, really?
answers. But the answer really is it depends. I
Mhm.
think if you have no reason to be sleepy during the day and you're needing to nap every day, you probably need to go see a sleep specialist,
Mm,
because something's up. If you have a newborn and you're up a bunch during the night, then you have a reason to need a nap.
mm,
And that nap may be very beneficial to you. That time that you're able to sleep, if you are able to sleep during the day, it adds to your 24-hour total. So a lot of people think, oh, it doesn't count unless it's like in big chunks. It does still count, and it can be very
oh,
beneficial. It gives your brain a chance to kind of move things out of sort of the active inbox and put them into storage, so that now you can take things in again. Um, and um, and so they can be really restorative in those types of. Or another example would be if you had an early flight and you had to get up much before your normal wake up time,
mhm,
then that afternoon or on the flight itself, whenever you can fit one in, a nap is probably going to be beneficial. What you want to watch out for is it impacting your ability to fall asleep at night?
mm.
So sometimes if people take a nap too late in the afternoon and they let the nap go on for too long, then they might have trouble falling asleep at night. And we're trying again to keep that regularity in the schedule. And so that's basically what you want to watch out for
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the naps.
That's so cool. So it's like exercise. Like it doesn't matter if you get like one bout of exercise, you can chunk it up throughout the day. It's still a cumulative effect. And I didn't
That's
realize
right.
sleep was the same way. That's very
Yes.
cool.
Mhm.
Very cool. Well, Ellen, you are just full of so much information. It sounds like you write a blog. And so we're going to link that in the show notes so that we can continue to build on our understanding of sleep, because obviously there's a lot of miscommunications out there. I could pick your brain all day, but we do need to, to wrap up for the show. I do have a question I love to ask everybody that comes on, and it's how do you like to fuel your awesome, whether it's literal or metaphorical?
you warned me that there would be this question, and I forgot to prepare for it. So the thing that does come to mind is I just love to move,
Mhm.
and that looks different every day. Right now, I'm doing a gymnastics class with my
Oh,
18-year-old
cool.
daughter before she leaves for college because she wanted to do gymnastics, and so here I am, doing something totally new. So I think having that sort of open mind, that growth mindset of, there is no cutoff in age for what you can always try something new at any age. And for me, the things that I enjoy the most are the things that involve movement.
I love that. Preferably outside, right?
Yes, preferably outside.
Well, Ellen, I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a voice that takes this pressure off of getting the perfect amount of sleep. I'm so grateful for you. I actually know tonight I'm going to go into my sleep more at peace because I'm going to say the 6.5 hours is serving me well and be good with that and be grateful for it. So thank you for what you're doing. If people want to get connected with you, how could they find you?
You can find me through the Better Sleep Council. I do some work for them on the blog, and so reaching out to them would be great. And then my practice is in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. And I know so many of us are going to have a better night's sleep thanks to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
I'm so glad you were here today. Let's do yourself a favor and write down at least one actionable item that you can take away from today's episode to start fueling your awesome. Here on the show, we scratch the surface of empowered eating, but if you're looking to dive in deeper, I would love to help you out with that. Head over to jessbrownrd.com. You can check out my free Empowered Eating Workshop. You can take a free quiz to see if your eating style aligns with your values, or better yet, book a discovery call with me to learn more about how to further your empowered eating journey. I cannot wait to be in your ear again, cheering you on along the way. Until then, cheers and happy eating.